Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where it's about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about episode 6 of Marvel's M.O.D.O.K. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, I love that we had that whole thing. I was actually surprised when we saw Asgard. I was like, oh, really? Like, is this episode going to take place in Asgard? Which, to a certain extent, it does. It turns out that's where M.O.D.O.K's been dumping a whole bunch of stuff. It's mainly just to piss off Thor, because he likes to just bother him, but it's also like, oh, let me throw this fire hydrant away. But Gary's like, no, I'm like the one in front of like fire safety, and then he goes on this whole tirade about how much he loves fire. It's like, oh, Gary's a pyromaniac. To be fair, he's got such a like can-do positive attitude. It's like there has to be some darkness there, and lo and behold, we found it. So it's like, yeah, we get it. Fire's pretty cool. Obviously, Alston's threatening to demote him even more because he's not doing his new job of when he got demoted. I don't know why I couldn't think of the word demoted. He got demoted last episode. It's like, so you're going to get demoted again if you don't kind of do your job. And it's like, also like he, I love that whole thing of like, right, he has a new email address and it's like, why is that an EDU? He's like, cause you just got schooled. It was like, it's lame, but I love it at the same time. But Jodie's calling M.O.D.O.K, which I love that he immediately interprets it as phone sex, and he's like, yeah, I take off your bra with my teeth or something like that, but then I start like, my throat starts closing up because I'm allergic to something in the fabric, and I'm like, how is that supposed to be something sexy? But nevertheless, it turns out she doesn't want Lou doing magic at his bar mitzvah, and he's super all about it. He's got this plan. He's like, and for my final trick, I'm going to bring my foreskin back from the dead. And Jodie's like, we've already talked about this, honey. Your foreskin's in hell. I'm like, Jesus. Nevertheless, he has like what he wants to do and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, also like have like his great grandma or whatever read, his fanfic or sex letters to the green M&M. I'm like, this is so weird, dude. That kid is so weird. And that's the whole point of like trying to get him to not be off of this magic thing. They're like, it's like, no worry, like, our somewhat normal kid. And then he grabs like, well, it was a bird or something. And he was like, shh. And it looks like he was literally kind of knocking it all. And just like Jodie and M.O.D.O.K are looking like, yeah, our kid's kind of messed up. So bringing him into work and showing him like, show me, oh yeah, this all the stuff you're doing for your magic. Oh, that's so awesome. And dumps it all in the trash can because it's like to the portal to Asgard. Because like, I'm not, you got to stop all your magic. Just like be into normal things. Lou falls in trying to get his stuff. M.O.D.O.K follows behind. His device the chair he's on gets messed up. Kobolds. Well, for one, the fairy or whatever shows up, stabbing him, wanting to jack him for his shoes. But then later on, it shows up and it's like, oh, M.O.D.O.K has like a pair it doesn't like, so it just like, oh, that's worth a stabbing, and it just stabs him and flies away. But Lou gets carried away by the kobolds, and so M.O.D.O.K has to save him while also his vehicle his chair is messed up. So he has to go a little old school. And it's like, oh, did I pick the 2 goats in Asgard that don't fly? I could get those other goats. I'm not going to waste time switching goats. And they fly off. Damn it. All right, well, I'm stuck with these guys. He's like, well, I'm not going to get attached to you. He immediately names him. Damn it. All right, fine. I'm going to love you guys forever, so I guess we're kind of stuck together. Because one of them is... one's a fainting goat, one's one of the ones that shrieks and stuff, so that was interesting. It turns out, like, the general he killed early in at the beginning of the episode, because they were looking into, like, who was dumping all that crap into Asgard, and something from AIM came and basically shredded his head. I don't know if that was actually a shredder. It looked like it was, and just everyone had to stand there while their general was being shredded to pieces like that. In particular, his head. I was like, that's brutal. Brutal way to start the episode, too. But, nevertheless, it turns out the kobolds eat unwanted children. And I love that whole thing of like, yeah, and now because they made a deal with the kobolds, it's like, oh yeah, so this way they can continue to have unprotected sex. I was like, that's twisted in its own right. So it's like, right, my son, I gotta go rescue him. But he's kind of loved by the kobolds. Yeah, they were going to eat him at one point in time, but they're kind of celebrating him. But sadly, Lou doesn't see things the same way his father does, because M.O.D.O.K sees it as, no, they're laughing at you. They're not laughing with you. They're laughing at you because, he's like, yeah, because we can all admit magic is lame. But for Lou, it's like, the fact is here, I can just be myself so I don't have to leave. And he's like, what do you mean be yourself? You're always yourself. And it's so blatant and in my face. And, because this is actually neat because it kind of plays into what I was asking about. I brought this up maybe an episode or two back. I was talking about the fact is we had an episode about Melissa and kind of her issues and everything. And kind of working on that. That's still obviously a work in progress. But now we kind of get the other side of things with Lou. Because I brought it up, I was like, Lou seems like he's kind of gotten okay with relationship with his dad, and I was wondering if there was going to be an episode dedicated, and lo and behold, we have it here. But his dad can't accept him for him. It's just like, yeah, I like magic, and why is that such an issue? So M.O.D.O.K decides, like, you know what, if I'm not going to be able to convince my son to go back, like, I'm going to basically trick the guys who want revenge against the one responsible for all of this. Which I even love that a bit he was talking about, like, oh, isn't it pretty cool? Whoever came up with this logo got someone kind of similar to who did the Baskin Robbins logo, so it's it wasn't cheap. And I actually thought that was interesting. It's like you can actually see the number 31 in their logo, so it's like, yeah, I thought that was so interesting. It's kind of similar to that is kind of an interesting thing when you kind of look at people's logos and there's actually something hidden within their logos. I always thought that is kind of fascinating. It is actually pretty cool. Like it's a gaming channel. They're mainly on Twitch, but they also have their YouTube channel. It's Game Attack. They used to be a part of Screw Attack, which is now Death Battle, but they splintered off. Their symbol for Game Attack. I mean, yeah, it's a G and an A, but the way it's designed, it's a G1. That's what they refer to their audience as their G1. So it's so interesting. Like it's stuff like that I think is so fascinating, like artistically designed. I'm going on a tangent. That none of that meant anything to you probably, but it's just kind of an interesting thing for me. So basically, he lies and says that Lou's the one responsible, and now it turns into a large-scale war between the Asgardians and the Kobolds, and there's a lot of death on both sides of that. One guy being like, oh, my dear Astrid, if I were to die, you are not to hook up with anyone else, because if you do, I swear I will haunt you. And we see that happen on the Kobold side of things. There's just a lot of death. It didn't seem like there were too many Kobolds dying. It seemed like it was mostly Asgardians that were dropping dead. Because basically he took all their shields and he melted it into the figurines he's using, like, to plan out the battle and stuff like that. I love that he's like, oh, like, pretending to be his son, like, Dad, I'm going to give up magic. And then he does, like, a Sean Connery, like, accent and says, you're the man now, doll. I know that's from a movie, but it's such a, well, for one, I didn't know that, I was unaware that I've never seen the movie it's originally from, but obviously it's like an old school meme. Like, we're talking super old school, and it's just so interesting, because, like, that's what it is. Like, people are not going to know it for being a reference to a movie. People are going to know it as a meme. That's the crazy thing about it. Like, I mean, it's kind of like with me at Family Guy bits. I always thought, like, oh, this is funny, but it's once you learn where the reference is from, it makes something funny. So there's plenty of, like, old school episodes of Family Guy where I'm like, I get that reference because I know what that's a reference to. So it makes it even funnier, you know? So it's kind of a thing like that. But I'm like, how many people are watching this know what that's... I don't even remember the movie's name that's from, but I remember someone explaining, like, the meme and where it came from, that it was from, like, a Sean Connery movie. You're the man now, dog. It's like, that's crazy. Regardless. So it's supposed to be peace talks. M.O.D.O.K decides, he's going to make a point of it and going to have a take and everything attack. But because of Lou, it went crazy because the goat, one fainted, the other one's screaming, and the tank didn't work. So now the Kobolds want revenge and want to kill him. Because the sad thing is, like, obviously, like, Asgardians are kind of laughing at him, and, like, M.O.D.O.K just kind of sends him away. Which, to be fair, they never got justice. I guess they were just kind of like, who cares? Because Lou never gets hurt later on. I guess they were just like, oh, there's so much death, let's just go. We're just not going to get revenge for our general, I guess, at the end of the day. M.O.D.O.K kind of explains the reason why he was trying so hard to get Lou to stop being normal. It's like, I want you to like football and toast. And it's like, what's up with you liking toast? You always bring up toast. I like toast. And it's like, you do? But for him, it's like, he's been ridiculed most of his life, and he just never wanted his son to go through what he went through. He's like, it's like, you always want me to be like you, Dad. And he's like, no, I don't. Like, he's like, people hate me. Be more like, I don't know, Tony Stark. He's like, your mortal nemesis? It's like, yeah, but people like him, you know? And it's like, oh, that's sad. It's like, you rather your son be more... He's like, yeah, eventually when I take over the world and stuff like that, you won't have to worry about that judgments. But until then, I need you to be normal so that you don't have to worry about the ridicule and the obviously tons of psychological damage and issues it's caused M.O.D.O.K over the years. I mean, it's his main motivator for becoming the villain he did, or has become, or is. But it was like I said, it's really sweet. Like, it's not like, oh, he like hates magic or something like that. It's just more so like he just wants his son to not just be humiliated and picked on. The Kobolds want revenge, so they want him dead. So M.O.D.O.K sets up a situation. Well, Lou sets up a situation. He's like, I'm going to cut you in half. And I love, he's just like hamming up the scene. And he's just like, oh no, there's no way you're going to get to my spine. Oh no, you got me. It's like, oh, is he dead? And it's like, no, I'm a 3, 2, 1. Now the countdown to death begins. 10, 9. Now he's dead. Oh yeah. And everyone's celebrating. And it's like, I love that, Lou pulls the box apart, and then the legs are still kicking, and they're like, oh, and some of the kobolds throw up. It's like, oh my god, his legs are kicking. Oh, we've become the monsters. But at the end of the day, you know, M.O.D.O.K kind of accepts Lou for who he is and everything, with magic and everything, and they have like a very like father-son, and it's like, oh, hug Dabra, and is what Lou said. It was like, oh, once again, puns. I'm all about them. I also skipped over it. I love the whole thing. Like, I wonder what it was, because like Jody was like, I looked up Frost Giant. I've never done that with an ice cream sandwich. I'm like, what the hell is the like Urban Dictionary definition of Frost Giant? Then I love it's like, oh, here's a giant squirrel. Oh, here's a frost giant to kill that giant squirrel. Oh, here's an even larger squirrel that ended up killing the frost giant. So that was interesting. But by the time he comes back, and it's like, oh, we're all good. But, like, the rabbi, she's like, yeah, I'm kind of a bit of wacky rabbi. But it sounds like there was a lot of senseless death. It's like, yeah, but me and my son, we came back together. I accept the fact is he likes magic. But for her, it's like, magic is kind of a symptom of a larger issue. Like, him being obsessed with it. It's like, I think, honestly, he's having trouble dealing with your divorce. So it's like, okay, so ban magic. No? Then all about magic. It's like, no, you just kind of have to find a way forward through all of this. And so he was going to talk to Lou, but he's just kind of like, I guess he didn't quite know what to say, because it's like, I can't really take magic from you, and realizing like how important it is to him, but that is a symptom of something more. So once again, like, he hasn't fully fixed everything between him and Melissa, and sadly it's like they took a step forward, but now it feels like they've taken 2 steps back in, you know, his relationship with Lou. At the same time, we have the Adaptoid being captured by the college M.O.D.O.K, and initially he's like, yeah, like, the fact of the matter is we have this whole relationship of like, they rib on me, I rib on them. Well, to be fair, I don't actually rib on them much, you know, I do this and that. It was like, actually, I don't rib on them at all. You know what, screw them. It's like, you know, you want me to betray them? Okay, I'll do it. You want me to poison them? Okay, I can do that. I know where the food is. In the house. And it's like, nah, I got something else planned. And it's like, oh, you're going to put them in those coffins? That's awesome, or something like that. So, what M.O.D.O.K has planned, well, younger M.O.D.O.K has planned, we'll ultimately have to wait and see. But it's more, I guess it's kind of almost like a watching your family die type of thing. Like, I guess he's going to turn them into something, or maybe he's going to create fake versions of, not unless that was like oh, I'm making fake versions of Jody, Lou, and Melissa, and I'm going to replace your real family with them, and you'll never know. And maybe that's way, maybe he'll try and destroy M.O.D.O.K, and like, by destroying his family unit, send him on the path to be the villain he's supposed to be. I don't know. Or whether it is plans to kill his future self, because it's like, you're so much of a letdown. I don't know what, like, past M.O.D.O.K has planned, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.